This is the SOS Flare, the most powerful deployable in Hypixel Skyblock by far. You want to know why? Take a look at the stats. It gives you 125% base mana regen, 30 vitality, 25 true defense, 10 ferocity, and finally 5 bonus attack speed. Oh, but Conator, you're literally wrong because the Plasmaflux gives you the same amount of mana regen, similar healing, and more damage. Let's take a look-see, shall we? Firstly, the Plasmaflux retails for around 639 million coins, while this SOS Flare retails for around 395 million coins, making the Plasmaflux 62% more expensive. Secondly, and arguably more importantly, the Plasmaflux takes half of your mana when you're spawning it, while the SOS Flare only takes 250 mana when you're spawning it, so in most use cases, the SOS Flare is going to be much better on conserving mana. So that's why the SOS Flare is better, but anyway, let's go get it now. Okay, so as you guys can see right here, the SOS Flare is currently retailing for 393 million coins on the auction house. However, if you look at the bottom of my screen here, it is much cheaper just to craft it, about 60 million coins cheaper, so I'm definitely going to be doing that instead. So this is the recipe right here for the SOS Flare. All of these items, the Apex and the Alert Flare being the most expensive items. So I'm going to go ahead and place a buy order for the Vertexes and the Apex, and then we can work on the Alert Flare. Now there's 27 insta-cells in 7 days, so I highly doubt this order is going to fill. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and set a buy order for 1 Inferno Apex right there. But then we also need 16 Inferno Vertexes, which have 2.5k insta-cells in 7 days. So this is much more likely to fill, but it still is kind of dicey with that. We also need 2 stacks of Molten Powder right here, and this should end up filling. We also need 32 Enchanted Sulfur, but that's really cheap. I can just go ahead and insta-buy that. And the last item we need before the Alert Flare is an item called Wilson's Engineering Plans. It's a super rare drop from Blazeslayer, but for some reason, it's only like 3.5 million coins. I will definitely go ahead and take that, and I'm really glad it's that cheap. Alright, now, to craft the Alert Flare, since I'm cheap, I'm just gonna go ahead and buy the materials for everything. The Alert Flare requires a Warning Flare, so we're gonna craft that first. Just to keep the SOS Flare materials separate for organization's sake, I'm gonna go ahead and insta-buy 16 Molten Powder right here, as well as 16 Enchanted Sulfur. And now if I just put this like this, and put this right here, we can craft the Warning Flare. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, I would truly appreciate it if you guys dropped a like and a sub down below. I'm in a race with the Flame Game God to 10,000 subscribers, and if we win that, I'll give you guys 150 million coins in my Discord. Speaking of which, join that for giveaways, carries, and more, and now let's get back into the video. This is the materials we need for the Alert Flare, another 16 Vertexes, another stack of Molten Powder, another half stack of Enchanted Sulfur, and obviously the Warning Flare here. I think I'll go ahead and buy order the Vertexes just because they're expensive. Actually, never mind, I'm impatient. We're just gonna go ahead and insta-buy these. It's like 10 mil more expensive, but honestly, I do not care that much at this point. We can also grab the 64 Molten Powder, 15 million coins, not too bad. And lastly, the half stack of Enchanted Sulfur. Then, let's see if I remember the recipe here. The Warning Flare goes there, Molten Powder there, Vertex is there, and the Sulfur right there, and we can go ahead and craft ourselves the Alert Flare. Nah, who is this kid, bro? Conifer? Bro is literally copying my name. That's crazy. Alright, so it's the next day, and as you guys can see right here, it looks like 16 items were filled in the bazaar here, so none of the Molten Powder was able to fill, which is annoying, but we got all of the Vertexes, and sadly not the Apex either, so I'm gonna go ahead and insta-buy the Molten Powder and the Apex here. But firstly, we can claim the Vertexes, and then cancel these 2 orders here. So firstly, we need, okay, now we need 127 Molten Powder, because I misclicked that. It should end up being like 12 mil, 13 mil more expensive, which is kinda bad, judging how cheap Molten Powder is, but it's fine. Look, it looks like the price of the Apex did drop a little bit on the insta-buy. So here we go, 116 million coins, 3, 2, 1. There we go. And now right here we have everything to craft the SOS Flare. So if I put this here, this here, this here, this here, these 2 right here, and then lastly this just like this, we can finally craft the SOS Flare. And we have it now. Firstly, I can throw some modifiers onto this, so I'm gonna get 10 mana disintegrators here. It'll just make it like 10% cheaper to spawn, which is good. That's the mana disintegrators done. As you can see here, it only costs 218 mana to deploy, as opposed to the 243 from before, which is a good increase there. It was only like 1 million coins as well, maybe 2 mil. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and buy myself a Sapphire Power Scroll here for about 1 million coins. It's gonna be the best one to put on there, since I'm mostly using the SOS Flare for the mana. And there we go. Okay, so I've just gone in the graveyard right now to try it out for the first time. but it looks like when I threw on the mage set here, it went down to 175 mana to deploy. I'm not really sure why that is, but I'll definitely go ahead and take it. Let's go ahead and launch the SOS Flare right now in 3, 2, 1. Pretty good texture there in my opinion, and this little box in the air is suspended to show that the SOS Flare is active. I also found that when you go far away, it kind of disappears the flare, which is something that I haven't really encountered with the power orbs here. It's interesting. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue because 40 blocks is a pretty big range, but it's just something interesting to note. Alright, so the final thing I want to do here is run some tests between the 3 items here. The SOS Flare itself right here, its previous tier, the Overflux, and the one that it rivals with, the Plasmaflux. So I've switched myself up into a pretty max intel setup here. My mage set, mage equipment right here, hype, and I'm using the G-Drag, just because that's probably what I'm going to be using when I damage mobs with the mage setup. So for each power orb, I'm going to place it down, spam my hype to make sure I get to 0 mana, and then we're going to record the time it takes to get back to full. So let's start with the Overflux. I'm going to place it down here, spam my hype, and we'll wait till I get down to 0 mana, which we are at now, and we're going to time the amount it takes to get back to full. And there we go, we are at full. I'll flash this time up on the screen right now. For the Plasmaflux and the Overflux, I'm only going to test the Plasmaflux here because they have the exact same base mana regen, and it'll just be easier to get down to 0 mana with the Plasmaflux since it takes 40% of your max mana in this case, as opposed to the 175 here, which is much less. So here we go, I'm going to place the Plasmaflux down, and my hype to get down to 0. Okay, we're at 0, and now let's time it. And there we go, we are now back at full. That should have been faster, but I don't know by how much. Okay, so now obviously we know that the SOS Flare gives you more vitality than the Overflux and the Plasmaflux here, but they both have natural regen benefits. So what I'm going to do to incorporate all of those benefits into one is we're going to be using a test with the Wand of Atonement since it heals over time, and these two do it over time, but this gives more vitality. So I think it's going to be the most fair test between all of them. So I've gotten myself down to just about dead here, 418 health. So I'm going to put down the Overflux right here. I'm going to take off the Lava Shell necklace and then use the Wand of Atonement quickly. And there we go. Just like that, we're back to full. Let's do the same thing with the Plasmaflux now. I'm gonna put it down, take this off, and do this. Just like that, we're back to full. And lastly, one final time with the SOS Flare here. So I'm gonna set that off right there. And do that. And we're back to full. So in the end, the Plasmaflux was actually the best at healing with this test, being a whole 1 second faster than the Overflux and 2.5 seconds faster than the SOS Flare. However, we gotta be noting here, different healing tests are gonna give different results. So overall, that brings us back to the question that this video is trying to answer. Is the SOS Flare worth the cost of 400 million coins? And to that, I would say yes. It's a pretty significant bit better than its predecessor, which was the Overflux, and it's definitely not worth the extra 300 million coins for the Plasmaflux. So overall, it's better than the Overflux and cheaper than the Plasmaflux, which makes it the best. But anyway, that's just about gonna wrap it up for this one. If you guys did enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe, as I'm in that race with Flame Game got to 10,000 subscribers, and also join the Discord. The link is gonna be in the description for giveaways, carries, and more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!